Good afternoon. Josh Weaver, landscape manager here at the Ray. We are at the visitor center here in West Point, Georgia today. Lovely backdrop back here is our pollinator garden, the first installation we had on the Ray Highway here at the visitor center in 2017. Got the bees flying behind me, butterflies, deer jumped out about an hour ago. It's a great place to be. So what is this pollinator garden? What's it do for us? We go over about 6 topics that we think are important. Soil health is one of them. So what does these plants do for our soil health? Well, this area only has to be mowed about once a year, so it's able to regenerate itself. These are all perennials. They're all native. They come back every year. We're not having to use mowers as often as we would out here on this turf grass that I'm milled down on right now. This is mowed about 5 or 6 times a year. So we're able to have microorganisms, fungi, there's a lot of diversity in the soil, earthworms and all such out here in our pollinator garden. Also, when that stubble is cut from the mowing each year, that stuff breaks down and becomes organic matter as well. So soil health is extremely important to the pollinator garden. Another thing of importance is the pollinators that we have out here. As you can see, the bees are flying around now and butterflies and whatnot, and they're out here all the time. So this right here started blooming about middle of April, and it'll bloom till about middle of September. So we got pollinators all throughout the growing season. All right. This area prior to this being planted, really can't tell here, but there's not a lot of area here at this visitor center where pollinators will be able to forage and have a habitat and whatnot. So we're able to build them a habitat here where they're able to forage and frolic around, and we just have a great diverse of pollinators. Next thing that's important is PheNode. So you see the PheNode in the backdrop of me? What is the PheNode? All right, the PheNode is helping us track what's going on in the soil. There are sensors attached to the PheNode that we can tell in real time what the soil moisture is in the soil. From that, we can do calculations to figure out about organic matter in the soil, nitrogen in the soil, and whatnot. That gives us real-time data that we're able to use, show it in these studies that we do to show how much water, like when we have rainfall, we get 2 or 3 inches of rain. Through the PheNode, we can tell in this plot how much of that water we're actually being able to capture in the soil profile as opposed to it running off. We have 3 of these along the Ray Highway. So this was installed last August 2023, so we're coming up on having it about a year. There's more that we're wanting to attach to it as well. We're going to start doing imaging with it, and it can be its own weather station in time. So that's something else that we're working with the PheNode group to try and get brought in here. Sequestration. All right, carbon. So that's a big buzzword right now. We want to sequester carbon. These pollinator gardens help do that. So if you think about the energy, the runoff, what they're doing with the soil, how they're helping the water infiltrate, they're capturing carbon within this plug. We actually pulled some samples this year, pulled some samples out here in the turf. We pulled samples in the bed in there, and actually found out that we are actually storing more carbon within this pollinator wildflower plot as opposed to out here on the grass. But now, pull samples only as good as where it's taken, so I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in that because we just did random samples throughout the plot. But it does show promise in that we can capture carbon within these areas right here. We also have legumes planted in here. We have our clovers, we have our partridge peas, and these are nitrogen fixation plants. So they take atmospheric nitrogen and they store that nitrogen in the soil. We don't have to fertilize these plots. All right, so these legume family plants, clovers, and partridge peas, they help store nitrogen in the soil for our pollinator garden here. It doesn't have to be fertilized as the turf grass out here does. You'll also see we have some plants in here that we don't want in there. Yes, you're going to have that with a pollinator garden from time to time. There are some, trees in there, but we go in and select prune those and get those out of there. So it creates less competition for our pollinator plants. And then also you're going to have some weeds growing there from time to time, but that's okay. It's not going to be 100% everything that you plant in the pollinator garden. There's going to be various weeds and other species. The main thing we want to make sure is we keep invasive species out. Johnson grass is a big problem that we have here along the interstate. So we're constantly trying to figure out ways to eradicate Johnson grass. If we get a thick enough plot, it really blocks out that competition for those invasive plants to start growing in there.